In this segment of Defending Inspiration, we're going to be looking at two beasts described that operating at the end of time. Let's read about them in Revelation 13. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads in the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon, now this is Lucifer, Satan. Ellen White explains this in a previous chapter. The dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? And who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Revelation 13, verses 1 to 8. So here we have an overall description of the Roman Catholic Church, from its inception, through its weakness from the deadly wound, and its return to full power just before the second coming. I will refer to it as the first beast. Now let us look at the second beast, which exists during the later stages of the first beast. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword, and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand, or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Revelation 13, verses 11 to 17. Now this is an overall description of Protestant America, from its rising out of nowhere to its creation of an image to the first beast, and its destruction of all freedoms. Or is it? Does this refer to Protestant America? Adventists have always said it does, but that is now changing. There are new claims among Adventists that the second beast is not what we thought it was. Here is the online statement of a prominent Adventist website writer. The problem in Revelation 12 and 13 isn't nationalism. That's not even hinted at. It's globalism. The lamb-like beast will speak like a dragon, which will require a very strong neo-totalitarian central government. Things seem to be moving in that direction rapidly. That's a bold claim, and totally against what Adventism has believed and taught since its beginnings. This new theology claims a one-world government, globalism, will be the second beast speaking like a dragon. This concept feeds into fears of a new world order, a great reset, a United Nations takeover. There's just one minor problem. This theory is utterly opposed to some of the clearest statements of inspiration that we have been given. Great Controversy, page 440 to 443. One nation, and only one, meets the specifications of this prophecy. It points unmistakably to the United States of America. Again and again the thought, almost the exact words of the sacred writer, has been unconsciously employed by the orator and the historian in describing the rise and growth of this nation. The beast was seen coming up out of the earth, and according to the translators, the word here rendered coming up literally signifies to grow or spring up as a plant. And as we have seen, the nation must arise in territory previously unoccupied. And he had 2 horns like a lamb. The lamb-like horns indicate youth, innocence, and gentleness, fitly representing the character of the United States when presented to the prophet as coming up in 1798. The lamb-like horns and dragon voice of the symbol point to a striking contradiction between the professions and the practice of the nation thus represented. The speaking of the nation is the action of its legislative and judicial authorities. By such action, it will give the lie to those liberal and peaceful principles which it has put forth as the foundation of its policy. The prediction that it will speak as a dragon and exercise all the power of the first beast plainly foretells a development of the spirit of intolerance and persecution that was manifested by the nations represented by the dragon and the leopard-like beast. And the statement that the beast has 2 horns causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast indicates that the authority of this nation is to be exercised in enforcing some observance which shall be an act of homage to the papacy, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast. Here is clearly presented a form of government in which the legislative power rests with the people, a most striking evidence that the United States is the nation denoted in the prophecy. What did the Internet writer state so authoritatively? The problem in Revelation 12 and 13 isn't nationalism. That's not even hinted at. It's globalism. Someone is grievously wrong, either Ellen White or our modern prognosticator. The 2 predictions are completely opposite. You will have to decide where you place your trust. Personally, I will stick to inspiration. There is one more key point about this untrustworthy prediction. Note his exact words. The lamb-like beast will speak like a dragon. That implies that the speaking as a dragon will be in the future. It will speak sometime later. Where does Scripture say that? The word will appears nowhere in Revelation 13, verse 11. It says, "And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon." Not he will speak, but rather he spake. A minor detail? Not really. As it changes a current event to a future event, it implies we don't have to worry about the second beast now, as it will only be dangerous in the future. What does Scripture say about adding our own words to the book of Revelation? Revelation 22, verse 18, "For I testify unto every man that heareth the words of the prophecy of this book. If any man shall add unto these things, God shall add unto him the plagues that are written in this book." The reason I make an issue of this is that current Adventist apologists for evangelical ideas and alliances are trying to water down the warnings we have been given about the danger of the religious right in America. Here is what a different prominent Adventist internet writer and commentator wrote regarding the evangelical movement. Unless and until evangelical Christians start publicly pushing a Sunday law with full knowledge of the biblical issues involved, and that has not happened yet, they are not our enemies. This pushes the danger the second beast poses far into the future, if ever. It is very true that the faithful people attending churches every Sunday are not our enemies. No one I know of says they are. But the churches they belong to are specifically identified by Ellen White as the movement which sets up the image to the papacy and persecutes the faithful in America. The wide diversity of belief in the Protestant churches is regarded by many as decisive proof that no effort to secure a forced uniformity can ever be made. But there has been for years in churches of the Protestant faith a strong and growing sentiment in favor of a union based upon common points of doctrine. To secure such a union, the discussion of subjects in which all are not agreed, however important they might be from a Bible standpoint, must necessarily be waived. Charles Beecher, in a sermon in the year 1846, declared that the ministry of the evangelical Protestant denominations is not only formed all the way up under a tremendous pressure of merely human fear, but they live and move and breathe in a state of things radically corrupt, and appealing every hour to every baser element of their nature to hush up the truth and bow the knee to the power of apostasy. Great Controversy, page 444 to 445. As the Protestant churches reject the clear scriptural arguments in defense of God's law, they will long to silence those whose faith they cannot overthrow by the Bible. Though they blind their own eyes to the fact, they are now adopting a course which will lead to the persecution of those who conscientiously refuse to do what the rest of the Christian world are doing and acknowledge the claims of the papal Sabbath. Great Controversy 592. This proves conclusively that the second beast has been forming since before Adventism even came into existence. Foolish attempts to be friends with this movement are dangerous and futile. Adventist leadership met extensively with evangelical leaders in the 1950s. After all of the compromises and efforts to tone down our distinctive doctrines to appease the evangelicals, one of these evangelical leaders said specifically, "I curse the seventh-day Sabbath." They may not be the enemies of Adventists, certainly not the people in the pews, but they certainly are the enemies of God's truth. The leadership of these groups very much are. Now that we have established beyond a shadow of a doubt the identity of the two beasts, we must ask a crucial question. Which of the two beasts is more important? Or rather, which beast is more dangerous right now? In the final events, the first beast reigns upon the world's throne in defiance of God, supported by the second beast. But does that make the first Catholic beast the most dangerous now? Ellen White describes the first beast and its chronological history. Great Controversy 439. This prophecy, which is nearly identical with the description of the little horn of Daniel 7, unquestionably points to the papacy. Power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And says the prophet, I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death. And again, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. The 42 months are the same as the time and times and the dividing of time, 3 years and a half, or 1260 days of Daniel 7, the time during which the papal power was to oppress God's people. This period, as stated in preceding chapters, began with the supremacy of the papacy, AD 538, and terminated in 1798. At that time, the Pope was made captive of the French army, the papal power received its deadly wound, and the prediction was fulfilled. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. At this point, another symbol is introduced. Ellen White goes on to describe the second beast, the United States. She describes the rise and fall of America and how it will speak as a dragon. Then she examines the image to the beast and what it represents. Later, she circles back to the first beast and how both beasts work together. Great Controversy, page 579. But in this homage to the papacy, the United States will not be alone. The influence of Rome in the countries that once acknowledged her dominion is still far from being destroyed, and prophecy foretells a restoration of her power. I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. The infliction of the deadly wound points to the downfall of the papacy in 1798. After this, says the prophet, his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. But when is the deadly wound healed? In a parallel passage, she examines the same passage from Revelation 13, and here she gives the time frame. Signs of the Times, November 7, 1900. When satanic agencies shall unite with the professed Christian world in opposing God, these words of the prophet will be fulfilled. In blind zeal the brother shall deliver up the brother to death, and the father the child, and the children shall rise up against their parents, and cause them to be put to death. And ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake, but he that endureth to the end shall be saved. God desires his servants to remember the instructions here given, that they may not be deceived in regard to what is coming upon the world. According to God's messenger, the healing of the deadly wound is still coming upon the world. The deadly wound has not completely recovered yet. Sure, the Catholic Church has enormous influence and control in many countries. Sure, the Pope goes everywhere and is considered a hero by the masses. Definitely, the Jesuits are doing what they have been doing since their inception. And thanks to conservative presidents of the last 4 decades, America's Supreme Court is now controlled by Catholics. But does that mean the deadly wound is healed? Definitely not, as we still have freedom to worship on whatever day we choose. The Catholic Church has been pushing Sunday sacredness for centuries. Does that demand result in laws forcing us to worship on Sunday? In fact, even in those countries who are mostly Catholic, religious freedom still exists to various degrees. No pronouncement of the Pope results in laws being enacted in America. Not yet. So the deadly wound is not fully healed. When will it be according to inspiration? Now, this is a quote from what we just read. When satanic agencies shall unite with the professed Christian world in opposing God, these words of the prophet will be fulfilled. In other words, the first beast is waiting for the professed Christian world. Since the Catholic Church isn't going to be waiting for itself, it must refer to the non-Catholic Christian churches, the Protestants. At the end, the leader of this movement is American Protestantism, as described in detail by Ellen White. Great Controversy 445. When the leading churches of the United States, uniting upon such points of doctrine as are held by them in common, shall influence the state to enforce their decrees and to sustain their institutions, then Protestant America will have formed an image of the Roman hierarchy, and the infliction of civil penalties upon dissenters will inevitably result. When the deadly wound is healed, the Catholic Church becomes the most powerful since it controlled the Western world during the Dark Ages. Control becomes complete and the last days play out. The details of this process remain to be seen, and speculation is not fruitful. But note the key aspect of all of this. The first beast, papacy, must wait for the second beast, apostate Protestantism, to do its part. This makes the second beast more important to us now than the first. The second beast is the catalyst, the history pivot, the force that lights the fuse of destruction. This makes a Pope watch unnecessary and probably dangerous. It distracts us from the current and immediate danger of the second beast. Monitoring every move of the Pope and his agents should not be our focus. Should we dismiss them? Of course not. We know who runs that show. We know the Pope is the man of sin. We know the Jesuits are up to no good. But railing against them publicly and privately will not change anything and will take attention from the true menace of apostate Protestantism. Jesuits influence and provoke Protestantism to act in the papacy's interest, but the responsibility lies with the second beast. We don't need a Pope watch, we need a Protestant watch. Remember always the clear prediction by God's messenger to the final generation. Great Controversy 588. The Protestants of the United States will be foremost in stretching their hands across the gulf to grasp the hand of spiritualism. They will reach over the abyss to clasp hands with the Roman power, And under the influence of this threefold union, this country will follow in the steps of Rome in trampling on the rights of conscience. Who reaches out to whom? Who initiates the union of spiritualism and Catholicism and Protestantism? Who is the prime villain of this dark future? Fallen apostate Protestantism is the key force. Catholicism reaps the rewards since they are on the same side anyway, with the same actuating spirit. If we do not pay attention to the principal current threat, we will become the fish that I talked about in misdirection and guile. Those facing the wrong way, becoming distracted by the misdirections of the second beast, will become easy prey for the increasingly powerful second beast when it decides to strike. Great Controversy 443. Whenever the Roman Church has obtained secular power, she has employed it to punish dissent from her doctrines. Protestant churches that have followed in the steps of Rome by forming alliance with worldly powers have manifested a similar desire to restrict liberty of conscience. Great Controversy 592. Those who honor the Bible Sabbath will be denounced as enemies of law and order, as breaking down the moral restraints of society, causing anarchy and corruption, and calling down the judgments of God upon the earth. Their conscientious scruples will be pronounced obstinacy, stubbornness, and contempt of authority. They will be accused of disaffection toward the government. Ministers who deny the obligation of the divine law will present from the pulpit the duty of yielding obedience to the civil authorities as ordained of God. In legislative halls and courts of justice, commandment keepers will be misrepresented and condemned. One other point of critical importance. When discussing evangelicals as a group, I do not intend to condemn individual members of the various churches involved. I am not talking about the sincere individuals who attend church, pray before their meals, or homeschool their kids. Many evangelicals are lovely people that believe strongly in what is right. Many of these will join with the remnant during the final events as the issues are made clearer. Just as we do not denounce individuals in the Catholic Church when we identify the first beast, so we do not denounce individuals in the evangelical movement when we identify the power that will set up the image to the beast. When I refer to the second beast power, I am referring to the church leadership and political agenda that knowingly sells its spiritual soul for temporal power. They have deliberately rejected the truth and will persecute those that remain faithful to it. And according to inspiration, this is not just a future condition, but has been proceeding since Ellen White's time. Great Controversy 592. As the Protestant churches reject the clear scriptural arguments in defense of God's law, they will long to silence those whose faith they cannot overthrow by the Bible. Though they blind their own eyes to the fact, they are now adopting a course which will lead to the persecution of those who conscientiously refuse to do what the rest of the Christian world are doing and acknowledge the claims of the papal Sabbath. Always keep the anglerfish in mind when we decide which beast is most dangerous. The first beast is waiting for the deadly wound to heal. The second beast is hungry and getting ready to strike. If we listen to inspiration, we will not be facing the wrong way. So we have shown from inspiration that America is the beast that speaks as a dragon. The question that remains is, how will we get there? There are several current theories being promoted among Adventist speakers. One is that the political left will make society so immoral and wicked that the political right will eventually have the power to seize control and force morality upon everyone. This will include an enforced day of rest, Sunday worship, as well as various Puritan-style reforms. This theory can be called the pendulum theory. The farther the pendulum swings to the left, the farther it will eventually swing to the right. Another popular theory is that the political left will continue to grow in power and will eventually rule absolutely, with no return swing to the political right. The left will enforce an anti-religious dogma of immorality and filth. Society will be so thoroughly controlled that this has been called soft totalitarianism. This is distinguished as a stepping stone in our society, leading to the eventually hard totalitarianism of the final Sunday law crisis. As we have already seen, inspiration has made it clear that the apostate Protestantism churches, Babylon, are the catalysts that initiate the final events. They are the trigger that lights the fuse of the destruction of religious freedom in America. Inspiration states repeatedly and unequivocally that false religion will be the driver of events, the force that cripples our way of life and persecutes all that refuse to bow down to the image to the beast. So this would appear to rule out the soft totalitarianism theory. An anti-God, immoral society is the opposite of what Ellen G. White describes as the conditions of the last days. But those who have been pushing this theory realize that the spirit of prophecy does not in any way support their speculations. This becomes obvious when you listen to them, and they never give any direct quotations from her that prove their ideas. This has led some to create a new, hybrid version of both the soft totalitarianism and the pendulum theories. It varies from individual to individual and is pretty muddy on details, but it goes generally like this. The soft totalitarianism of the left will last for a while, ruining all of our lives. Then the pendulum will finally and quickly swing to the right, and a formerly crushed and powerless religious right will seize control and instantly enact a Sunday law. I will call this theory the hybrid theory. The hybrid theory has no direct support from inspiration either, but that hasn't stopped it from being promoted. So those are some of the ideas of men. We've looked at several different theoretical options. What does inspiration say? Thankfully, we have clear statements that shed light on this question. Great Controversy, page 592. The dignitaries of church and state will unite to bribe, persuade, or compel all classes to honor the Sunday. The lack of divine authority will be supplied by oppressive enactments. Political corruption is destroying love of justice and regard for truth. And even in free America, rulers and legislatures, in order to secure public favor, will yield to the popular demand for a law enforcing Sunday observance. Liberty of conscience, which has cost so great a sacrifice, will no longer be respected. Note the exact words she uses. Free America. At the very end of history, when the forces that enact the Sunday law are nearly at their goal, America is still described as free. Would she call it free if America was run by communists, atheists, or anarchists? Would she call it free if the elites of the world were calling the shots? Would she call it free if America was a pawn of a one-world government? Maybe she just carelessly miswrote the word free and said it better elsewhere. In another passage, she describes the condition of our government leading up to the end of time. Testimonies, Volume 1, pages 203 to 204. God restrains our rulers, for the hearts of all are in his hands. Bounds are set, beyond which they cannot go. Many of the rulers are those whom Satan controls, but I saw that God has his agents even among the rulers, and some of them will yet be converted to the truth. They are now acting the part that God would have them. When Satan works through his agents, propositions are made that, if carried out, would impede the work of God and produce great evil. The good angels move upon these agents of God to oppose such propositions with strong reasons, which Satan's agents cannot resist. A few of God's agents will have power to bear down a great mass of evil. Thus the work will go on until the third message has done its work. And at the loud cry of the third angel, these agents will have an opportunity to receive the truth, and some of them will be converted and endure with the saints through the time of trouble. When Jesus leaves the Most Holy, his restraining spirit is withdrawn from rulers and people. They are left to the control of evil angels. Then such laws will be made by the counsel and direction of Satan that unless time should be very short, no flesh could be saved. This is a remarkable passage. It describes the efforts of Satan to create laws that impede the work of God and produce great evil. But God has his agents even among the rulers, which Satan's agents cannot resist. America will not have its freedoms destroyed until the third message has done its work. This she specifically dates to the close of probation, when Jesus leaves the most holy place. Then, when God's restraining spirit is withdrawn from rulers and people, evil laws will be made by the counsel and direction of Satan. So only at the close of probation does God allow America's government to pass laws destroying our freedom. The time period that America falls to this state of totalitarianism is a very short time, or else no flesh could be saved. This utterly rules out both the soft totalitarianism theory and the hybrid theory, as both require the government to be corrupt for a long time before the close of probation. When you hear speakers promoting these sorts of unfounded theories, you need to realize that they are replacing inspiration with speculation. Free America means free America, not socialist America, or communist America, or Nazi America, or soft totalitarianism America, or whatever term you want to throw at it. If we don't take Ellen White's words seriously, we undermine and will eventually disregard other clear, inspired warnings. So we have a choice, as always, between the words of men and the Word of God. Be wary as you listen to speakers dealing with current events. It is so easy to get swept away by accusations against enemies and attacks on the government. We must not be distracted by side issues. This is not our work. How does any of that improve character perfection and heart preparation? Justification and sanctification are the focus of inspiration, not pointing fingers at the bad guys. Besides, as Ellen White said, God has his agents even among the rulers. Are you able to tell which is which? Are you the judge of such things? And even if you guess right, so what? Is it your job to purge the government, take up arms, march on the Capitol? Will that bring the second coming any sooner? Let God be in control of what he has promised to regulate, including world events. Our only responsibility is to live the truth and share it with others. That should keep all of us plenty busy. And be glad that free America exists and that it will stay that way until the very end.